I have a confession to make. I like Darius. I really like Darius. I liked him when he looked like this in set 3. I liked him when he looked like this in set 4. And I especially like him now he looks like this in set 15. And, I didn't actually like him pretty much any time he did the spinny thingy with his axe instead of the like donkey thingy with his axe. So like, he's a 2-cost 1 point, did that, not very cool. And in set 5, he was a 5-cost that did do the donkey thing, but he didn't do the donkey thing very well. Just kind of like set out with some little shitter dogs and nothing really happened, did no damage. That wasn't very cool either, but that's besides the point. And what I'm really trying to say is that, generally speaking, Darius is pretty awesome. Not only is Darius awesome, but he is probably the coolest unit to have ever existed in TFT, and represents what is by far my favorite archetype of unit in the game, the big boom boom melee poggers. In layman's terms, that about translates to cast-oriented drain tanks. Units like Darius, they ride a fine line between incredibly frustrating and incredibly fun, both for you and the person who you're playing against. Sometimes your big boom boom melee pogger, they'll just barely get the last cast off. They needed to kill the entire rest of the board, and you're freaking out, and the other guy you just beat is flaming you and fishing for a 7-day chat ban. And other times, it barely doesn't get the cast off, or you get CC'd to death, or maybe you just barely get killed, and you can't, hope but wish that Darius was a horse girl that you could send off to the glue factory. But you know what? That's not a thing, and that's okay. Units like Darius create such a crazy amount of fun and hype in each and every game they're in, and really do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to making TFT as fun as it is. And there are a ton of tricks to help you make them, and especially Darius, shine, and I'd like to talk about some of those today. Before we talk about how to turn Darius into the 300-pound, 7-foot man of your dreams, I would super appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. I know it's been a little bit since I posted a video. I've been trying to figure out like a new format, and hopefully this will be something that people like. Do let me know if you like it, by the way, in the comments. But yeah, if you subscribe to the channel, it helps me keep making stuff like this, and keep the content coming. So thank you. The most important part, for sure, of playing any of the melee, boom boom, whatever the fuck I called them, is to understand what kind of fight it is you're actually trying to play. Darius is cool, especially in set 15, in that there are a few different ways in which you can turn him into the TFT equivalent of a meat grinder, essentially. I would say the two most common ways you'll see this happen is you'll see him play some very, very fast fights. We're playing the mind game with Harmony, because Harmony's in chat. Boom, boom, boom. Really focus on blowing up everything as quickly as possible. And the second kind of fight you'll see often are these like really stat checky mid-range fights, where he just kind of like slowly, not slowly per se, but like, not as quickly runs over everyone eventually without being able to die. Shot. I should have like pretty much one-shot the Mundo, I think, but it definitely did not. Holy damage. Boom. Boom. Oh my god, holy shit. Oh my god, everything's just dying. Holy! He's so cool, man. He's so fucking cool. The somewhat common third type of fight you can play is also pretty stat checky. It's a little bit more rampy as well. It's really characterized by items like Bloodthirster and Titan's Resolve, which generally are just like not great right now, and makes this version of him a little bit worse as well. So you won't see it as often, and we're not going to focus on it too much as a result. Before we talk a bit more about what exactly you should be prioritizing in each type of win condition for Darius, it is important to note that there are some really key aspects to units like Darius, these, again, melee boom booms, that remain true really no matter what type of fight you're trying to play with them. The most important of these aspects is definitely that you are going to get insane value off of any kind of resource that is geared towards specifically beefing up your big D. Things like raiding items, artifacts, fruit power-ups that are incredibly selfish, like Fusion Dance, they'll all amplify your board power by a ton. The point of playing around units like Darius really is to have as much of the power budget of your board as possible being pumped into, these like big, beefy 1v10 guys. So resources that go wide and buff your whole team really won't see as much effectiveness. This is actually why Supreme Cell is so insanely busted for him, because the whole trait is basically saying, hey, you put a few crappers on your board, all of a sudden you're going to have this big chungus 1v10 like everyone, because they get so much value. In the super fast Darius fights, where you just kind of want to one-shot everything, you only need one of two things to accompany Darius, and that's punching power or backline access. I would say for this type of Darius fight, you'll often want to be on like 4 Supreme Cell, dual carrying either Kaisa for, big backline DPS or Akali. She's just a lot of backline access, and she's generally just a pain in the ass, I would say. The most common way you'd see this played right now is for sure with Kaisa Rammus reroll. Pretty popular, but you really can build it a ton of ways as long as you keep in mind what it is you're trying to accomplish. You can tech in 3 mech and reroll Senna, and that can be fine. You can reroll Yasuo and play Tormentor with him, and that'll be fine. A bunch of other things too, like this game, for example, that we're watching in the background. I played some Smolder reroll with him, and it, does a lot of damage. It worked out. I would say the biggest tells for a line like this, it being good in your game, or having a good spot for it, it really is that you have a lot of tempo in some early Dariuses, and most of your items are just damage items, right? Not a lot of tanky stuff in general. Do not build things like Rageblade or Archangels in this type of fight. I will personally come to your house and I will spit in your oatmeal. Upfront damage like Infinity Edge, Guard Breaker, Hodge, Giant Slayer, Deathblade, etc. are all good here. It's called Stride Breaker now. They're all good here. I think the best possible fruit is probably Bludgeoner. You can ignore 40% of a tank's armor after they're already being sundered by an Even Shroud or Last Whisper. You're basically doing true damage. Gets really close to making me reenact this gif of me spilling yogurt on myself. It is yogurt, trust me. As for the more stat-checky versions of Darius fights, you'll often want to be playing around 6 heavyweight, fishing for something like Fusion Dance in your fruit to make your Darius turn into, again, this 1v10 king that just straight up can't die. He just doesn't take enough damage, and he does too much damage and heals too much. Until, of course, he ults a K'Sante, and while K'Sante's ulting, because K'Sante ult it makes him unkillable, and then all of a sudden, you got the ult like another 2 times after the K'Sante ult to finally kill the K'Sante, but then when you kill him, he comes back to life, and then you're on Leona, and then Leona doesn't fucking die because she's also tanky, and she takes like 2 ults to kill, and then after you kill her, fucking K'Sante's back alive again, and the entire time, the backline is just hitting you and hitting you and hitting you, and K'Sante won't fucking die, and why does he come? Frustrations with K'Sante aside, this is probably the version of Darius here you saw most often in PBE, and you'll see it like kind of frequently this set. I wouldn't say so frequently right now, but like it's been there, and it probably will be there like as the set goes on. It won't ever really fall out of meta because it's just not really in the meta, but it's like kind of in the meta. And it really is characterized by pretty much just having enough beef on your board that Darius just, kills their whole board before they can get through your front line. Other than Fusion Dance, which is, again, probably the best fruit, stuff like Bludgeoner is still really good here. Anything that's, like, damage or even, like, tankiness can be okay here, too. There's some fruits, like, there's, like, Weights Off, or I don't know if Weights Off is the one, actually. There's one that, like, gives you DR and damage and stuff if you die 8 times. That's not Weights Off. But Weights Off is actually pretty good, too. I think it's attack speed and damage reduction. So there's some good ones out there. You can be a little bit more flexible with the fruit here. It doesn't have to just be bursty and damagey like with the other type of Darius. Items don't also need to be quite as focused here, but again, this kind of board is generally more gold intensive. You can, like, there's some room for BT Titans type stuff. It's not as good, obviously. You still would rather have, like, IE, BT, not BT, IE, like GS, Stride Breaker, blah, blah, blah. But, you can make it work a little bit more flexibly as long as you have the gold on your board. As in, like, you're 3-starring your stuff, right? Your heavyweights. As far as tells to play this type of board go, I think it's pretty similar to the last one. Maybe not as much, where it's, like, less about the items and how much gold you have and whether you have Darius's early. If it's, like, a high econ port, like a Scuttle Puddle or Crab Rave, and you have, like, a Darius from Orb and, like, a Sword Drop or something, you can look at this for sure. Again, it's a little more gold intensive than the other one, but it does cap out, like pretty high, I would say. Like, very high, really. And it keeps up and is rarely ever contested, so definitely keep an eye out. Again, I think the most important thing by far when deciding whether or not to chase the high of watching a Big D dunk an entire board really is correctly identifying what kind of fight you have the resources to play and whether that fight is actually a Darius fight. If you get dropped a Darius, but your items are tier rod, it's just probably not going to fly, man. A lot of the power in 3-class lines really does come from tempo, a lot of early tempo, and you'll never have the HP or the gold, inside of like maybe some high econ portals, right, to actually hit in time otherwise. Ideally, if your resources are lined up properly, you won't have to stack a ton of HP and should still be winning like a few fights on stage 4 with Darius too. Like, you'll be like the 1-cost or the 1-star Punisher, really, But it's a very fine line between getting absolutely blown out or being the one who does the blowing out. I think Darius certainly has some legs to stand on in the current meta, at least 2 of them, as he is bipedal. Okay, sorry. Mostly I think he's just super fun to play, man. I mean, he's Darius. He dunks, he's cool. Watching a Darius dunk on an entire board is so fun. And if you think you'd have fun watching him kill an entire board all on his own, then definitely put some time into learning the lines and becoming a master of the Big D. Just look at some stats if you want as well. There's really more to it than what I've talked about today. And finally, here's a little dunk montage to get the blood flowing. Fuck yeah.